If you asked my parents, they'd probably tell you I was the difficult one in the family. Not because I was reckless or irresponsible, far from it. I had a stable job, paid my bills, and kept my life in order. But in their eyes, that just meant one thing. I was their go-to problem solver. The one expected to step up whenever someone else in the family, aka my sister Sophia, messed up. Sophia was 30 but lived like a teenager who refused to grow up. She had never kept a steady job for more than a few months, always had an excuse for why she couldn't pay rent, and somehow managed to convince our parents that none of it was her fault. It was always the economy, bad luck, a toxic work environment, never her own irresponsibility. I learned early on that if I wanted peace, I had to keep my distance. It wasn't easy, though. My parents had a habit of roping me into her problems, guilt-tripping me into helping family. That's why I had spent years setting boundaries. Too bad they had no intention of respecting them. It all came to a head at a family dinner. I should have known something was off the moment I stepped into my parents' house. My mom was too nice, my dad was oddly quiet, and Sophia wouldn't even look at me. Something was up, but I had no idea just how bad it was about to be. Dinner started out normal enough small talk, my mom making passive-aggressive comments about how I never visit anymore, my dad nodding along, and Sophia looking like she had some big secret. Then, just as I was about to escape without too much drama, my mom put down her fork, folded her hands, and hit me with it. "So, Ethan," she said, in that overly sweet voice she used whenever she was about to say something I wouldn't like. "Your sister is going to be moving in with you for a little while." I almost choked on my food. The room went silent, like they were all waiting for me to just accept it and move on. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I just stared at them, waiting for the rest of the explanation because there was always more. And sure enough, my mom kept going. "She's had a really rough time lately, and you have that nice place all to yourself," she continued, as if it was the most logical thing in the world. "It just makes sense. You can help her get back on her feet, and she won't be a burden on us. A burden on them, because heaven forbid my parents actually tell Sophia to take responsibility for her own life. No, that was my job apparently. Still, I didn't react. I let them keep talking, waiting for them to fully commit to this ridiculous plan. My dad cleared his throat. "It's not like you can't afford it," he added. "She just needs a stable place to figure things out." That was when Sophia finally decided to speak. "It'll only be for a few months," she said, voice suspiciously rehearsed. "And I can help out with stuff around the apartment too." That was a lie, and we all knew it. Sophia didn't help out with anything. She barely cleaned up after herself, but I still didn't react. I just nodded slightly, like I was considering it, because in reality I was waiting for them to make the biggest mistake of all assuming I was actually going to go along with it. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make them uncomfortable. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for some kind of outburst: anger, frustration, resistance, but I didn't give them any of that. Instead, I exhaled slowly, set my fork down, and nodded. "Okay," I said simply. For a moment, nobody spoke. My mom blinked like she hadn't expected me to agree so easily. My dad looked relieved, as if he had been bracing for a fight. And Sophia? She smirked, like she had just won. I could already see her wheels turning. She probably thought she had pulled off some master manipulation, that I had caved exactly as she and my parents had planned. She had no idea what was coming. "So, when is she moving in?" I asked casually, taking another bite of food. My mom beamed. "Oh, we figured this weekend. That way she can get settled in before she starts looking for work again." "Perfect." Sophia stretched her arms behind her head, like she had just won the lottery. "Yeah, I don't have that much stuff anyway. Mostly clothes, a few boxes. It won't take long to set up." I nodded again. "Sounds good. Just let me know what time, and I'll be there." That part wasn't a lie. I would absolutely be there. Not at the apartment, of course. No, I'd be somewhere better. Watching from a safe distance as Sophia, my parents, and a car full of her stuff pulled up to my former apartment. The one I hadn't lived in for weeks. The one I had sold. The one that now belonged to an entirely new tenant who had no idea what was about to happen. And I wasn't going to stop them. Not yet. I was going to let them find out exactly what their little plan had gotten them into. The days leading up to that weekend felt agonizingly slow. Every time I thought about what was about to happen, a grin tugged at the corners of my mouth. But I kept my cool around my parents. I didn't want them getting suspicious. Instead, I let the plan unfold exactly as I had imagined it. like a slow-motion train wreck, with me on the sidelines watching it all happen. Finally, Saturday arrived. At noon, I got the text. "On our way," I smiled. Then I waited. It didn't take long. About an hour later, my phone buzzed again. A call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, and another. Finally, I picked up. "Hello? Ethan." My mom's voice snapped through the speaker. "What is going on?" I grinned. "Oh? What do you mean?" I asked, feigning innocence. I could hear chaos in the background, Sophia shouting. My dad trying to talk to someone, confusion everywhere. "The apartment's gone," my mom practically shrieked. "The landlord says it was sold weeks ago, and there's a new tenant living here now." I leaned back in my chair, letting the satisfaction sink in. "Oh wow," I said, my voice dripping with fake surprise. "That's so weird. I could have sworn I mentioned that. I hadn't, and that was exactly the point." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could hear my mom breathing heavily, trying to process what I had just said. My dad muttered something under his breath, probably cursing the situation. And Sophia? Oh, she was absolutely losing it. I could hear her shouting in the background, demanding answers, her voice growing shriller by the second. "What the hell do you mean you sold it?" she screeched. "Where am I supposed to go now?" I let out a slow sigh, savoring the moment. "Gee, Sophia, I don't know," I said, my voice dripping with fake concern. "Maybe you should have figured that out before you decided to move in, without even talking to me." My dad finally spoke, his tone tight with barely restrained anger. "Ethan, this isn't funny. We're standing here with all of Sophia's stuff, and there's nowhere to put it. You should have told us." I leaned back in my chair. Inspecting my nails like this was just another ordinary day. "Should I have?" I mused. "Because, as I recall, you didn't ask me. You just decided. And I figured, well, since we're making life-changing decisions without consulting each other, I'd just go ahead and sell my place. Keep things fair." "Ethan," my mom said, her voice dangerously low, "you need to fix this." I smirked. "Oh? And how exactly do you propose I do that? Buy my apartment back? Build a new one from scratch? Maybe I should just magically make a second bedroom appear in a place that I don't even live in anymore?" "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "No, I'm being smart," I corrected. "For once, I put myself first. You just don't like it because it ruined your plans." There was a long pause. Then Sophia shrieked, "You absolute asshole." I pulled the phone away from my ear, letting her rant to the air. When I brought it back, my mom had taken over again. "So what do you expect us to do?" she demanded. "Just leave her on the street?" I shrugged, even though they couldn't see me. "I don't know, Mom. Maybe you should let her move in with you instead." The silence that followed was almost delicious. Finally, my dad let out a frustrated sigh. "We don't have the space for that." "Oh, but I do?" I asked mockingly. "Isn't that funny?" My mom exhaled sharply. "This isn't over." "Sure, Mom," I said, barely holding back my laughter. "Whatever you say." Then, before they could get another word in, I hung up. For the next hour, I ignored the flood of calls and texts. I already knew what they would say: guilt-tripping, emotional blackmail, Sophia demanding I fix the mess she put herself in. I wasn't interested. Then, a new number popped up on my screen. I frowned. Probably a spam call, but something told me to pick up. "Hello, Ethan?" It wasn't my mom. It wasn't my dad. It wasn't even Sophia. It was Nathan. Nathan, my best friend, the only person who had known about my plan before I put it into action. I grinned. "So, how bad is it?" Nathan burst out laughing. "Dude, I don't even know where to start." That was all I needed to hear. I leaned back, getting comfortable. "Tell me everything." Nathan had been keeping an eye on things for me. See, while I had removed myself from the situation, he had made a little visit to my old apartment building that afternoon, purely for entertainment purposes, of course. And oh, it was so worth it. According to him, my family had arrived with a fully packed car, completely confident they were about to unload everything into my apartment. But instead of being greeted by me, they walked straight into a stranger's housewarming party. Apparently, the new tenant, a guy named Marcus, was just as confused as they were. He thought they were delivery people at first, Nathan told me, between bouts of laughter. Your mom actually tried to argue with him, like he was in the wrong for living in his own apartment. I snorted. You're kidding. Oh, I wish, Nathan chuckled. Your dad tried to reason with him, and Sophia was just standing there with her mouth open. looking like she had literally short-circuited. That image alone was enough to make my entire week. "So, what happened next?" I asked, grinning. "Well," Nathan said, dragging it out for effect, "Marcus was surprisingly nice about it. He let them stay for a few minutes to sort themselves out, probably felt bad for them. But when your mom started demanding to know where you were, he told them to get out." I let out a satisfied sigh. Music to my ears. "Oh, and the best part," Nathan continued, his tone gleeful. "Sophia tried calling some of her friends to crash at their place, but guess what?" I raised an eyebrow. "They all said no. Every single one." I burst out laughing. Nathan laughed with me. "Dude, she had a full meltdown in the parking lot, screaming about how everyone abandoned her and how this is all your fault." I wiped a fake tear from my eye. "Man, if only I had been there to see it." Nathan grinned. "Well, don't worry. I recorded some of it." I gasped. "You are a saint." "Obviously," he said smugly. "I'll send them over later." I let out a slow exhale, letting the satisfaction sink in. This was justice. By the time I hung up with Nathan, the first had a dozen new missed calls from my family. I ignored every single one of them. Then, just as I was about to turn off my phone for the night, one final text popped up on my screen. It was from Sophia, and it was just one sentence. "You think you've won? This isn't over." I smirked. "Oh, Sophia," I muttered to myself, tossing my phone onto the couch. It was over before it even started. I woke up the next morning to another wave of missed calls and texts from my family. At this point, their persistence was almost impressive, almost. Sophia had clearly spent the entire night stewing in her anger because her texts had taken on a new level of crazy. "You're a selfish bastard, Ethan. Do you even care about this family? I hope you know Mom was crying all night because of you. Enjoy your pathetic little life. I hope you end up alone." I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, yawned, and muttered, "Damn, I really am the villain in her origin story." Nathan's messages were far more entertaining. "Bro, you are not going to believe what happened next." I sat up. Oh, this ought to be good. According to Nathan, my parents had completely lost it. After their failed attempt to dump Sophia on me, they had taken her back home, something they swore they couldn't do just a day ago. But the tension was palpable. They were all screaming at each other by the time they got inside. Nathan texted. I could hear it from my car. I chuckled. Karma's a beautiful thing. But then, Nathan dropped the real bombshell. "Oh, and guess what? Your dad is on your side now." I froze. "Dad? The same man who spent years defending Sophia's every bad decision?" I called Nathan immediately. "Okay, explain." Nathan laughed. "Dude, your mom went off about how this is all Ethan's fault, and your dad just snapped. Said that maybe, just maybe, Sophia needs to start taking care of herself instead of expecting you to do it for her." I blinked. "Who is this man? And what has he done with my father?" Nathan laughed. "I know, right? He actually told Sophia that if she wants a place to stay, she should start paying rent, and she lost it." I grinned. "Oh, I need to hear more." Nathan continued. "She accused him of abandoning her just like you did. Your dad told her to grow up and get a job." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. "Sophia must have absolutely combusted." Nathan sighed dramatically. "Man, if only you could have been there to see her storm upstairs like a teenager grounded for the first time." I wiped a fake tear from my eye. "This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me." Nathan chuckled. "It gets better." "Oh, your dad left the house. I think he needed to cool off. But your mom? She's still completely on Sophia's side." I wasn't surprised. My mom had always coddled Sophia, and she wasn't about to stop now. "She's been trying to call you all morning," Nathan added. "Wanna bet she's about to try another guilt trip?" I rolled my eyes. "Oh, absolutely. But I'm not answering." By noon, my mom had officially given up on calling and instead switched to emails. Her subject lines alone were hilarious. "Ethan, we need to talk. Please call me back. Your sister is struggling, and you don't even care. I didn't raise you to be this heartless." I skimmed through her long-winded message, and as expected, it was a masterclass in guilt tripping. She wrote about how I had abandoned my family in their time of need, and how Sophia has nowhere to go, which was a lie, since she was still living in their house. Then came the real kicker. "Your father has been saying some awful things about Sophia. I don't know what's gotten into him, but you need to talk to him before he does something drastic." I raised an eyebrow. "Drastic?" I immediately called Nathan back. "Dude, my mom just hinted that Dad is about to go rogue. What do you think she means?" Nathan snorted. "If I had to guess, I think he's about to make Sophia face some actual consequences. I grinned. This just keeps getting better. As it turned out, Nathan was absolutely right. By the end of the day, my dad had issued an ultimatum. Sophia had exactly 2 weeks to find a new place to stay. If she didn't, he was kicking her out. And this time, he meant it. She's throwing a tantrum right now, Nathan updated me. She's screaming about how you ruined everything. I smirked, music to my ears. She's still trying to find someone to take her in, Nathan added. She even called one of her exes. I burst out laughing. Oh, that's desperate. Yeah, and guess what? He said no. I wiped another fake tear from my eye. Truly a tragedy. Nathan chuckled. So, what's next? I grinned. Now, we sit back and watch. By the end of the week, Sophia was in full panic mode. She was rapidly running out of options, and for the first time in her life, no one was swooping in to save her. She called me one last time. I answered, just to hear what she had to say. Her voice was raw, filled with barely contained rage. I hope you know you've destroyed this family. I smirked. Oh, Sophia, I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped letting you walk all over me. She let out a sharp breath. You think you've won? I leaned back in my chair. I don't think I won, Sophia. I smiled. I know I did. She hung up on me. I stared at my phone for a moment, then tossed it onto the couch with a grin. This wasn't just a win. This was a victory. If there was one thing I knew about Sophia, it was that she didn't give up easily, not when it came to getting her way. She had 2 weeks before my dad kicked her out, and for those 2 weeks, she did everything she could to weasel her way back into my life. First, she tried to play nice. She sent me a text, a single message. Ethan, can we talk? I stared at it for a moment before responding. Talk about what? Everything. I know we haven't always gotten along, but I want to fix this. I almost laughed. She didn't want to fix anything. She wanted to manipulate me into saving her. I replied with 2 words, not interested. Her next message came 10 seconds later. You're really going to let me be homeless? I'm your sister, I smirked. And a full minute passed, then another. Then, finally, her response. You're a selfish asshole. And just like that, the mask fell off. When playing nice didn't work, she switched to plan B, trying to turn people against me. She started with our mom, of course. Mom called me that night, her voice dripping with forced disappointment. Ethan, I just got off the phone with your sister. She's devastated. She feels completely abandoned. I sighed. She's not abandoned, Mom. She has you. Mom hesitated. Well, yes, but... And she has Dad. Another hesitation. He's being unreasonable. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? You mean because he finally decided to stop enabling her? Mom sighed. Ethan, this isn't how families should treat each other. I gritted my teeth. You mean like how Sophia has treated me for the last 20 years? That's different, she said quickly. She's always had a hard time. You know that. I nearly laughed. Yeah? And whose fault is that? Silence. Mom, I said, keeping my voice calm. I know you think I'm the bad guy here, but for once, I don't care. I'm not Sophia's backup plan. I never was, and I'm done pretending otherwise. She tried one last time. She has nowhere to go. I smirked. Then maybe she should have thought about that before she burned every bridge she had. I hung up before she could respond. Then there was plan C, desperation. 3 days before her deadline, Sophia showed up at my apartment, uninvited. When I opened the door, she was standing there with 2 suitcases and a fake smile. Hey, Ethan, she said, like we were best friends. Can we talk? I crossed my arms. Nope, she blinked, clearly not expecting that. What? I said no. I leaned against the doorframe. We have nothing to talk about. She scoffed. Come on. I know you don't actually want me to be homeless. I grinned. That's where you're wrong. Her smile dropped. You're serious? Dead serious. She let out a bitter laugh. Wow. You really don't care, do you? I met her gaze. Not anymore. Her jaw clenched. Fine. If you won't let me stay, then at least lend me money for a motel. I smirked. Not my problem. Her hands curled into fists. I swear to God, Ethan, you're going to regret this. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? And what exactly are you going to do? Her nostrils flared. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed off. I waited until she was at the end of the hallway before calling out, Good luck, Sophia. She flipped me off over her shoulder. I laughed as I shut the door. Then, the final straw. 2 days before she was supposed to be kicked out, she did the most Sophia thing possible. She tried to sneak into my apartment while I was at work. She used to have a key, but after our family dinner, I changed my locks. So, when she tried to open the door and failed, what did she do? She called the landlord and pretended to be me. Unfortunately for her, my landlord is not an idiot. She called me immediately. "Hey, Ethan, some woman just tried to get into your apartment. She claimed to be you." I sighed. "Yeah, that's my sister." She laughed. "She's really bad at lying." I groaned. "Tell me about it." The landlord hesitated. "You want me to call the cops?" I considered it for about 2 seconds. Then I smirked. "No need. I got this." That night, I showed up at my parents' house unannounced. When Mom opened the door, she looked shocked to see me. "Ethan?" she said. "What are you? I need to talk to Sophia," I interrupted. Mom hesitated. "She's upstairs." "Great." I stepped inside without waiting for permission. I found Sophia in her old bedroom, lying on her bed and scrolling through her phone. She looked up and immediately scowled. "What do you want?" I leaned against the doorway. "Oh, not much. Just wondering why the hell you tried to break into my apartment today." Her eyes widened slightly before she scoffed. "I don't know what you're talking about." I chuckled. "Really?" "Because my landlord says otherwise." Sophia gritted her teeth. "It wasn't a big deal." I crossed my arms. "No, Sophia. It was a felony." Her face was drained of color. I smirked. "You're lucky I'm not pressing charges." "Yet," she swallowed. You wouldn't." I tilted my head. "Wouldn't I?" Silence. Then I took a step closer and lowered my voice. "Here's the deal. You've got 2 days to get out of this house. If you so much as breathe in my direction after that, I will call the cops." Sophia stared at me. For the first time in her life, I think she finally believed me. She didn't say a word. She just nodded. I turned and walked out, stopping only to tell my mom, "This is the last time I'm cleaning up her mess." Then I left. And this time, I knew Sophia had finally run out of options. For the first time in her life, Sophia was out of moves. 2 days. That's all she had left before Dad followed through on his promise to kick her out. And for 2 days, I waited for the inevitable final act of her drama. It came sooner than expected. The night before her deadline, I got a call from Dad. "She's gone." I blinked. "What?" "She packed her stuff and left." His voice was unreadable. Didn't say where she was going. I leaned back in my chair, digesting the news. Guess she finally realized no one was coming to save her. Dad sighed. "I thought she'd at least try to fight it." "Oh, she did," I said dryly. "Just not with you." Silence stretched between us. Then, quietly, Dad said, "I should have done this years ago." I smirked. "Yeah, you should have." He didn't argue. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of peace. Sophia was finally someone else's problem. And yet, something felt off. Because if I knew my sister, and unfortunately, I did, she wouldn't just disappear. Not without a plan. I found out what it was the next morning. Nathan texted me first. "Dude, have you checked your email?" I frowned. "Why?" Sophia just went nuclear. I pulled up my inbox. And there it was. A mass email. Subject line, "The truth about Ethan." Oh, for fuck's sake. The email was insane. It was a full-blown manifesto sent to our entire extended family, detailing how I had ruined her life. She accused me of lying to our parents, of manipulating Dad into kicking her out, of turning the whole family against her. And the best part? She framed herself as the victim. I actually laughed. Loudly. Nathan called me. "Dude, you good?" "Oh, I'm better than good," I said between laughs. "This is hilarious." Nathan chuckled. "Yeah, but you do realize what she's trying to do, right?" I sobered. "Yeah, she's trying to guilt-trip the family into taking her side." "Exactly," Nathan said. "So, what's the plan?" I smirked. "Oh, I have an idea." I called Grandma. "Now, let me tell you something about my grandmother. She does not tolerate bullshit." And if Sophia thought she could turn Grandma against me, she was about to learn just how badly she miscalculated. Grandma answered on the first ring. "I assume you got the email?" I sighed. "Yep. Well, let me tell you what I think," she said, her voice dangerously sharp. "That girl has been spoiled for too long." I grinned. "So, you're not buying her sob story?" "Oh, please," Grandma scoffed. "I called your father the moment I read it. He told me everything." I raised an eyebrow. And I told him I should have smacked some sense into him years ago for letting her get away with this nonsense. I burst out laughing. Grandma continued, "You listen to me, Ethan. You did the right thing. Your sister needed a reality check, and if she doesn't like it, too bad." I let out a slow breath. "Thanks, Grandma," she huffed. "Now, you just sit back and watch." Because if Sophia thinks she can play the victim, she's about to learn the hard way that I don't play those games. I smirked. Can't wait. By the end of the day, the email had completely backfired. Instead of siding with her, our family tore her apart. Aunt Lisa called her out for never keeping a job. Uncle Mark reminded everyone that she stole money from him years ago. Cousin Jake flat out replied, "Damn, Sophia, maybe the problem is you." I loved every second of it. By the next morning, Sophia had deleted the email. And just like that, her last attempt to manipulate the family failed. I had won. Sophia had lost. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely free. But the thing about people like my sister, they never go down without a fight. I wasn't naive enough to think she would just disappear quietly. And I was right. It started with blocked numbers. Sophia tried calling me from 5 different ones in the next 2 days. When that didn't work, she left voicemails, then emails. Then she tried texting Nathan. Nathan, of course, was not having it. "She really thinks I'd side with her?" he said, shaking his head. "What does she think I'm gonna do? Kidnap you and force you to apologize?" I snorted. Honestly, wouldn't put it past her. But Sophia wasn't done. When she realized she couldn't get to me, she went after Dad. Dad called me 2 days later. "She's asking to come back," he said, voice tired. Said she had nowhere else to go. I took a deep breath. And I told her no. I blinked. "Wait, really?" Dad sighed. "Ethan, I know I've made mistakes. I let your mother convince me that Sophia just needed more time, more help, but I see it now. If I let her back in, nothing will ever change." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then I smiled. "Proud of you, Dad." He let out a small laugh. "Took me long enough, huh?" "Yeah," I admitted, but better late than never. Sophia's last move was desperation. With no money, no job, and nowhere else to go, she turned to the only person she had left, Mom. Mom, of course, welcomed her with open arms. "She's your sister, Ethan." Mom scolded me over the phone. "And she's struggling. You can't just turn your back on her." I took a sip of my coffee. "I think I can." Mom gasped. "How can you be so cold?" I leaned back. "Easy. I remember every single time she screwed me over. Every time she made me feel like I didn't matter. Every time you and Dad let her get away with it. She's family," Mom insisted. I shook my head. "That excuse doesn't work on me anymore." Silence. Then, quietly, she said, "So that's it?" I smiled. "That's it." And this time, I hung up first. Months passed. And for the first time in years, I didn't have to deal with my sister's bullshit. I thrived. My work improved. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with. Hell, I even went on a few dates. And Sophia, well, let's just say things didn't go as well for her. Nathan called me one day, voice full of amusement. "Dude, you're not gonna believe this." I smirked. "Try me. Sophia got kicked out of your mom's place." I choked on my drink. "What?" Nathan cackled. "Yep. Apparently, after 3 months, even your mom couldn't handle her anymore." I sat back, stunned. "Holy shit. She's couch hopping now," Nathan added, "jumping from one friend's place to another. But the thing is, she's running out of friends." I let out a long, slow breath. Damn. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then, I remembered everything, and I realized this was never my problem to fix. The last time I saw Sophia was completely by accident. I was walking downtown, grabbing coffee, when I spotted her across the street. She looked different. For the first time in her life, she didn't look entitled. She looked tired. She saw me. Our eyes met. For a split second, I thought she'd come over, try to talk to me, try to fix things. But she didn't. She just turned and walked away, and I let her.